A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's learn about Scientology. All the words and strange definitions to make normal terms seem far more malicious. Harvard laid a clever trap, but in the end it's a whole bunch of crap. Hello there, darlings. My name is Samuel, aka the SP Chef. I'm an ex-Scientologist. I grew up within Scientology as a child, and when I was 13 years old, I joined the elite group within Scientology called the C Organization in East Grinstead in England. I then worked for Scientology for 7 years. I left when I was 20, came back to Switzerland, which is where I'm originally from, and then I left Scientology quietly with 25. But it was only with 31 that I, for the very first time, talked about my own experience within Scientology publicly. And ever since then, I have been publishing different interviews. I've been doing videos talking about my experience in Scientology on my channel. So do check that out if you're interested in that. But here on this series, the ABCs of Scientology, I will break down the different Scientology words and terms that Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, invented, made up to explain Scientology. Now that can get quite difficult, which is why I thought I'll do a series where I will take each letter of the alphabet and then take some words for each of these letters that are commonly heard around within Scientology, and maybe even people who have never been in Scientology may have even heard some of these terms. So I will show you exactly what he has written about it, because there are two Scientology dictionaries that he, Hubbard, wrote to explain these Scientology words. And I will read out loud to you exactly what he wrote, and then if I need to explain, I will explain a little bit further what that means exactly, and I will give examples where I would have used that word or that term. So without any further ado, this week the letter will be... So this week with the letter B, we'll be looking at 3 words. So we'll be looking at backflash, blow off, or simply to blow, and bull baiting. So let's begin with backflash. So Hubbard writes, backflash, an unnecessary response to an order. This can get fairly wicked. They are not acknowledgements. They are comments or refutals. Example, sell the bricks as an order is replied to by bricks are hard to sell, or we should have sold them yesterday. This is a disease peculiar to only a few staff members. They cannot receive an order directly and are seeking to be part of the communication, not the recipient. This goes so far as senseless will cause, or I'll take care of it, when the executive only wants to know, is it done? HGOPL, 10th of April 1963. So will cause is an abbreviation for will comply. So I'm going to comply, I'm going to do it. And at the end of each definition, you will always have the source. So where can you find the definition? So in this case, it's HCOPL, Hubbard Communications Office Policy Letter of the 10th of April 1963. Hubbard wrote different kinds of policies and scriptures, if you want to call it that way, and he categorized them in different ways. So in this case, it is an HCOPL, 10th of, and then obviously the date, 10th of April 1963. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So a backflash is an unnecessary response to an order. And he says this can get fairly wicked, really. So in other words, if you're giving an order, you're not allowed to question the order. You're not allowed to find out, okay, what is the logic behind the order? Let's figure out, okay, how come you want to give me this order? Because it's possible that that person has some information that you don't have, and vice versa. So that is why you might want to inquire, okay, so why exactly are we doing this? Can you explain the exact way that you want me to do it, and so on and so forth? Well, that is unacceptable in Scientology. So he gives an example of sell the bricks as an order is replied by bricks are hard to sell, or we should have sold them yesterday. So if somebody gives you the order, sell those bricks, you simply are supposed to go out there and sell those bricks. You're not allowed to ask, okay, well, I've never sold a brick before. How am I supposed to do that? Or what kind of bricks are these exactly? You're not allowed to ask any sort of questions. You're just supposed to go out and do it. Later on, he says, even in the definition, are seeking to be part of the communication. So that is that's bad thing. You're not allowed to be part of the communication, not allowed to give question back, ask a question, okay, how about this, how about that, or maybe even make a suggestion or anything like that. You just simply are supposed to go out and do it. And you're not allowed to say either, oh, you're going to take care of it, it's going to be done. No, you're supposed to say, yes, sir, and then just go off and do it, basically, which I find very amusing. And Backflash, I heard that so much when I was in the SEOG. So this is the elite group within Scientology, where you sign a billion-year contract to work there for the rest of your life, basically. So I was in the SEOG, and hearing the word Backflash is very common. Because as soon as you hear, I'm just generally an inquisitive person, and I'm a sort of person, I need to understand why I do something, because it makes it easier for me to do it, and I would be able to remember it much easier next time that I do it. So if it's, I work in a kitchen, I'm a chef, so there are certain things that I will have to do again and again and again in the future. And if I understand from the first time that I do it why I'm doing it, like what's the logic behind it, why do I have to do these 3 steps with this vegetable before I can even cook it, why can't I just go ahead and cook it? It makes it much easier for me to then understand it, and then be able to apply it later on. As well as if it's a particular kind of vegetable, I can then deduce, okay, well, this vegetable is part of that family. So if I take another vegetable of the same kind of family, maybe I have to do these 3 steps as well. And you can do this connected thinking, basically, which is always very much appreciated in any work space. But this is not allowed in Scientology, because that is called a backflash if you ask questions about it. If an order is given, you're simply supposed to do it. And I recall having asked, well, why exactly and how and so on and so forth. They don't care. Your seniors do not care about these things. They just care about the results. You need to just get the job done. Just get it done, make it go right. Otherwise, it's a backflash. So that is how I personally have experienced that word. Right, so our next word will be blow-offs, or to blow. There are a few words I'm going to just briefly explain before we actually get into the definition. So the first word is a session. A session in Scientology is almost like a counseling, a one-on-one counseling. It might be a little bit of an insult towards counseling, quite frankly, but that's the closest way to explain what a session is within Scientology. Then in other words would be post. So post is a job, is another word for a job within a Scientology organization specifically. And then we've got things that are known as overts and withholds. So overts is a discretion. It's something. It's a crime basically that you do. And a withhold is when you go against a rule or morals and you withhold that. So you don't tell anybody that you did that. So oftentimes overts and withholds, they go hand in hand, because of course you commit an overt, so you do a crime, and then you tell people, so that then you are withholding it. Alright, so let's have a look at the definition now for blow-offs or to blow. Departures sudden and relatively unexplained from sessions, posts, jobs, locations, and area. One can treat people so well that they grow ashamed of themselves, knowing they don't deserve it. That the blow-off is precipitated, and certainly one can treat people so badly that they have no choice but to leave. But these are extreme conditions, and in between these we have the majority of departures. People leave because of their own overts and withholds. That is the factual fact and the hard-bound rule. A man with a clean heart can't be hurt. The man or woman who must become a victim and depart is departed because of his or her own overts and withholds. It doesn't matter whether the person is departing from a town or a job or a session. The cause is the same. HCOB, 31st of December 1959. HCOB is Hubbard Communications Office Bulletin from the 31st of December 1959. Now, reading this caused quite a few emotions in me, I have to say. So at first, a little amusement in the beginning, where he gives this, where he basically tells that the reason, one of the reasons why somebody will leave an area, a job, a relationship even, any sort of anything really, he puts it very broadly, is because they were treated so well in that area that they feel ashamed to be part of it. They feel like they don't give enough, so they have to leave, which I think is kind of cute that he puts it there. And then he obviously gives the other extreme example of being treated so badly. And he says, but these are extreme examples. These are rare occurrences, really. But really, the majority of reasons why people go is in the middle, which is having done overts and whistles. So he basically said, and he says very clearly that that is a fact. People leave because of their own overts and whistles. That is the factual fact and the hard-bound rule. Okay? So the reason why you want to leave your job, the reason why you want to split up from a relationship, or you want to leave a session, for example, in Scientology, is because you have committed overts and whistles. And that is the only reason, basically. Because the other two reasons, the extremes reasons, these are extremely rare and they hardly ever happen. So the most likely reason is you have committed overts and whistles. And I find that very intense reading that, because while I was in Scientology and I was working for Scientology in the C organization, so the elite group within Scientology, I wanted to leave several times. I didn't want to work there anymore. And I was basically told, well, that's the only reason why you want to leave is because you have committed crimes, you have done bad things, and this is the only reason why. And then you go through a process where you have to write down all your sins, everything bad that you have done, all the overts and withholds, as it is known within Scientology. And you get to a point where you're sort of almost like beaten that mentally, that you just give up. You just don't even bother saying that you want to leave. And so oftentimes people just simply leave. They just simply run away because they don't want to go through the whole procedure of being punished for wanting to leave. And this whole idea that the only reason why you want to leave an area, a job, a hat, a session, anything, is because you have done wrong things. I think this is so incredibly outrageous and toxic. I'm astounded. I'm just shocked that it really says that. I mean, it's really as extreme as that. There's no gray area in Scientology. It's always black and white. It's always either this way or that way. That's it. And it is astonishing to see that this thing that is written in 1959, it's still being done, applied to, and followed now. It is incredible, but there it is. So I've had experience with blow-offs or blown, in that sense that I wanted to leave. I didn't want to do things. I didn't want to do my job because it was very hard work. Well, that obviously means you've done overts. So there is no other reason. It cannot be because you've been treated badly. Because you see, he only gives these extremes examples. So only if you've been treated so badly that you fear for your own personal livelihood and safety, then it might be excused. But if it's anything other than that, pretty much, it's because you've committed overts. So, that's the Scientology, or more specifically, the Hubbard's way of explaining why people would run away from sessions, would run away from posts, would run away from Scientology. It's because they have committed overts. It's not because they experienced such a bad and horrific session, or they had such a horrible time having to do their job. No, it's because they committed overts. So that's a very clean way of getting out of that responsibility, basically, for Scientology and, of course, for Hubbard. All right, so let's have a look at the word bullbaiting. In coaching certain drills, the coach attempts to find certain actions, words, phrases, mannerisms, or subjects that cause the students doing the drill to become distracted from the drill by reacting to the coach. As a bullfighter attempts to attract the bull's attention and control the bull, so does the coach attempt to attract and control the student's attention. However, the coach flunks the students whenever he succeeds in distracting the student from the drill, and then repeats the action until it no longer has any effect on the student. Taken from a Spanish and English board of baiting, which means to set dogs upon a chained bull, but mainly to attack or torment, especially with persistent insults, criticism, or ridicule. Also to tease, from LRH, so L. Ron Hubbard's definition notes. So bull baiting in Scientology is, as you can see, a drill that you do to flatten any buttons that you have. So if you, for example, become very quickly angered by somebody insulting your mother, well, perfect. That's what the coach will do. He will make yo mama jokes all the time until you do not react to it. So you're not allowed to laugh. You're not allowed to, make fists or something, become tense, angry. You're not allowed to flinch or anything like that. And if ever you do any of these things, you react in any sort of way, then the coach will say flunk, and then he will say why he flunked. So he will say flunk, you flinched. Flunk, you laughed. Flunk, you cringed, or whatever it is. And then he will say start, and then he will repeat that particular thing that he did that made you do the action again and again and again until you do not react anymore to it. Now, it could be that 10 minutes later, he will take that thing that he used before where you acted and do it again, just to make sure it is really flat, that you do not react on it. And then he will move on and do other things and so on and so forth. So that is the idea behind it, is to train you to not react on things, to just completely ignore any sort of reaction. And that is to prepare yourself for later on when you become an auditor. And in Scientology, an auditor is simply a listener. So it's somebody who listens in a session. So in the sessions, that is like counseling. I mean, it's an insult a little bit to counseling, but it's a one-on-one counseling, and the auditor is the counselor. So he's supposed to be trained so nothing will faze him. So regardless of what you will say, so even if you talk about very rude things, very sexual things, the auditor is not fazed. So that is the point of doing this bull baiting drill. And one could say, okay, I can see the benefits of that. Sure. I mean, when you do that, it's a good thing. I mean, there's certain people who get very angry very quickly. They have a very short temper. So one could say, okay, I can see how that could benefit, just not even for a session necessarily, but just in life in general. However, where it becomes quite dangerous is that by doing that, you basically teaching the students to take abuse, to just not react, not be upset, not to have any emotion about what is being said or done. And this can become very, very dangerous in certain situations. I mean, imagine yourself, you've done these bull baiting drills for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and then you come into a relationship where you are being abused. And you just put your TRs in, your training routines in. So bull baiting is part of these training routines. So you put your TRs in, you just simply let the abuse wash over you. And this is just a simple example. But also, for example, when you do these bull baiting, the coach, there's no limit of what they can talk about. If, for example, he doesn't say anything like, if the person you're doing the drills with is under the age of 18, under the age of 16, for example, you're not allowed to talk about these sort of things or something. No, it doesn't have that. So you can talk about absolutely everything with anyone with any age. And I, for one, I did these TRs, these training routines, of which one of them is bull baiting. I did these since I was a small child, since my legs were dangling off the chair. I mean, I don't know how old I was. I must have been 5, 6 years old or something when I started with that. And you do it with other children, usually when you're a child, but you will also do it with adults. And then there are some adults who have some common sense, and they will not do any sexual whateverness, diddling sort of comments. But others, they don't, because they will see you as a child as an adult, because in Scientology, children are seen as adult in small bodies, and they can take anything. And so this can get very, very disgusting and abusive. And as a funny little story, I actually found out about oral sex while I was being bull baited, because I never knew about that. So that was a funny little incident. So I was, thankfully this was, thankfully, I don't know, it was done by a teenager who was a bit older than me. This was a girl. And I must have been, so I was in England. So I went to England when I was 13 years old, working for Scientology, and I spoke well enough English that we did this in English, so I must have been probably 14, I would assume. And funny enough, I never had to talk with my parents, about the birds and the bees, so I had no idea really. I didn't really know didn't understand it. And this person said the word blowjob. Said blah 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 blowjob, and I laughed at the word because I thought it was a funny sounding word. And then she kept on going over it, so kept on using this word again and again to trying to make me go flat on that, so I don't react anymore. And then I think I just asked, well, what is that actually? I need to look it up in a dictionary. I don't understand what it is. And she couldn't believe I didn't understand it. So she explained it to me what a blowjob is. And I was completely shocked by that. Like, why would you do that? Because at this point, okay, I'm 14 years old. It's kind of embarrassing saying this, but I didn't even understand or know that sex is pleasurable. I had no clue. For me, sex was simply there to get the job done, to have children. That's it. And to do anything other than just regular sex, to have children, would just make no sense to me, because I didn't know it was pleasurable. And then we came into this is now a little tangent, but it's kind of funny. And then she was talking to me about, well, I'm sure you've seen those flavored condoms, right? And I said, yes, of course, I've seen those. Well, that's because of that. So that, there's some strawberry flavor or whatever. And I was quite flabbergasted by that, because I actually genuinely thought the reason why there was flavored, and don't you dare laugh at me now, the reason why there was flavored condoms is because, you see, I thought of it in a very practical way, okay? So I knew sex, more or less what happens, you've got a pointy bit, and you've got a holy bit, and then the pointy bit goes in the holy bit. Right, fair enough. And I knew about friction, okay? So I thought, due to the friction and due to the exercise of it, it can get very sweaty. And because of that, then it will stink, because obviously sweat is smelly, it's unpleasant and gross. And so that's why there are condoms with flavors, so that when there's a friction, okay, there's it sends out a scent in the room, so it's a more pleasant smell, so you don't smell the sweat. Now hear me out. I'm from a generation where there were stickers where you could rub them and then there's a smell on them. So that was my logic. So anyway, this is a little tangent. I just thought it was kind of funny. All right, darling. So these were the words with the letter B for this week. I do hope you found it interesting, educational, dare I say even entertaining. And if you have any questions on these definitions, if you yourself are an ex-Scientologist or even an active Scientologist, please write down in the comment section of your own experience with these words. Or, of course, if you have any disagreement with my examples or how I understand what they mean, please do let me know down in the description below. And with that, I wish you a most excellent day and most marvelous week. Goodbye. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's learn about Scientology. All the words and strange definitions to make normal terms seem far more malicious. Harvard laid a clever trap, but in the end it's a whole bunch of crap.